Shalom all. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School at KosherTorah.com. I want to share with you a continuing lesson in our series, which I've been calling now The Secrets of Genesis. We began this, 3 lessons ago. Actually, tonight's the 3rd lesson. And the topic that I want to discuss tonight is pretty much a controversial one. And that is the topics of the pre-Adamic civilizations and the teachings of the hollow inner earth. Most people are very, very surprised that you have Judaic traditions on these subjects, but yeah, we do. And for the record, for those of you who want to go and look this stuff up, this is a copy of my book here. Gotta get into the camera, right? Stuff. Aliens, Angels, and Demons. I wrote this book specifically to talk about this type of material. Actually, I wrote this for my audience on the Ancient Aliens television program. The show has been on for years and years and years, and represents prominently so many different ideas and beliefs, which we certainly do not embrace in our Torah tradition. But they were very gracious that they even have an interest in me and put me on the show, which of course I'm totally honored. The production company Prometheus are a bunch of the sweetest, nicest people you'd ever want to meet. And we love being on the show. We have the Alien Con conference. Right now it is October 2018. We have the next one coming up November 2018, just next month in Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm going to be flying all the way over the pond, as they say, from here in Europe to attend. So I should be there in November. And looking forward to meeting all of those of you who will be in attendance there. And of course, they got the other one coming up, I think in June 19, out in Los Angeles. Last one was Pasadena. So it's always fun meeting with all the people from the show, people who, of course, enjoy what we do there. And again, I'm honored that they actually give me, as an Orthodox rabbi, the opportunity to sit and share, to the public audience, those ideas and beliefs that our Torah teaches. Needless to say, I never get the airtime that, of course, I would like to have to share in full depth what we teach. Then again, they only have, X amount of time on the show. And they'll take, hours and hours of interview time that we do and sum it up into a few minutes to appropriately represent and complement their program. Again, always doesn't represent everything that I want to say, and that's why I wrote the book. So again, Aliens, Angels, and Demons is available on Amazon.com. Best and easiest place to get it. And, well, you'll see the topics that we discussed. So anyway, one of the things we were talking about Genesis in our previous 2 classes, we spoke about the actuality of the creation experience. And in all due respect, we can go on and on and on, verse by verse, word by word, sometimes even letter by letter, and in my opinion, not cover everything that the Genesis story has to teach. And boy, oh boy, all right. You know how I do my classes here. You don't see me piled up with a whole bunch of books and stuff like that. I believe in, as we say, winging it. In other words, I try to be raw. I try to be honest. I talk with you honestly right here, you and me right here on camera, live. I don't do editing. I don't do, second takes, whatever, that kind of stuff. What you see is what you get. That's what our Kosher Torah school has always been about. And that's just the way I do things. So on that note, I chose specifically topics now that I think are of interest and maybe even importance. And one of those topics we're going to start with is what we discussed previously, the age of the universe. And we saw how modern science understanding billions or billions of years, totally in alignment with what our Torah traditions teach. You'll find that even Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, I forgot the name of the book, The Age of the Universe and something like that. I don't know if it's even available anymore. Translated a number of sources which speak about the ancient age of the universe, the understanding of the 6 days of creation being a symbolic metaphor. Well, with that being said, we all know that in Genesis you have 2 stories of the creation of man. One in Genesis 1 and one in Genesis 2. There are a number of opinions expressed by rabbis throughout the century that those two stories are not telling the same thing, or in other words, they're not speaking about the same creation at all. Essentially, what the teachings are is that there was something called a pre-Adamic civilization. And again, Rabbi Kaplan translated in that book, The Age of the Universe, a large section of an introduction to a Mishnaic commentary by Rabbi Lifshitz, which is, again, you got to read this stuff and see what our rabbis say. Essentially, the teachings are this, that Adam, good old Adam from the Garden of Eden story, is not the first human being to have been created, but that there was a full human civilization from beforehand. And that this is hinted to in the Bible by the many different names for the word man in Hebrew. Adam, of course, Adam means man, male and female. And whenever you see in the Bible the term Ben Adam, son of man, it is not some mystical appellation that you find in later literature, even amongst Christians, that it's some magical, spiritual, blah, blah, blah term having something significance. No. Anybody who knows modern Hebrew knows very clearly that the term Ben Adam simply means a human being. So when Ezekiel the prophet is being referred to as a Ben Adam, translate that not as son of man with some mystical appellation. No, call it human, mortal. So essentially, when the angels or God is referring to a prophet by the term Ben Adam, is saying you, mortal, human being. And that's all that it means. I don't know, it sounded rather derogatory to me rather than anything spiritual or sublime, but what do I know? Anyway, but there are other terms, ish, enosh, other words and other terms for man. So what the teachings are, to sum it all up, and again, you can go do web searches on this. There are a number of opinions on this in Judaic literature. I'll just, for the record, one of the strongest opinions that does not accept the pre-Adamic civilizations in the way that we're about to describe it is none less than Rabbi Chaim Vital, the redactor of the Ariel system. In spite of the fact that almost every Kabbalist before him speaks about the pre-Adamic civilizations, Chaim Vital is emphatic that all pre-Adamic worlds were, in quote, spiritual and not physical, where in which commentators to Chaim Vital have even interpreted his own words to validate the pre-Adamic concepts. That's just pretty much the way it is. So what it was understood was that originally God created man, male and female, and there was arising on our earth right here, great advanced civilizations, and very well might be what has come to be known in the traditions of cultures around the world as the civilizations of Atlantis and or Lemuria, Mu. There's no contradiction to the existence of these things here in our tradition. So pretty much what it sums up to be is that somehow, somewhere, these great human civilizations arose here on Earth, arose to great technological heights, equal to, if not surpassing that of our own today. And somehow, in some way, at some time in history gone, faced disaster. And their civilization was destroyed. And that this is what's echoed in the Bible with different talks and discussions and things like that. And that our Adam, the one created, you know, from the earth and stuff like that, was actually originally sent here from outside of Earth as kind of a messianic character with the specific intent of, if you will, rectifying that which had already fallen. So the details of the pre-Adamic civilizations and what happened, I don't really think that's covered much. You'll find references to the existence of the pre-Adamic civilization in all the literature. Even the Zohar seems to make a reference to it. We call this the sabbaticals or the Shemitot. And again, Chaim Vital, in all due respect to him, was emphatically in disagreement. And those who are rigid in their understanding of Kabbalah, holding exclusively to Chaim Vital, will not accept this. However, pretty much everyone else does. In my book, I've documented all the sources, over a dozen, 2 dozen sources of the greatest Kabbalists around, both before Chaim Vital and after, who very much believe that there was advanced human civilization here on Earth prior to our story of Adam. Now, who cares? Well, this makes a lot of difference because, again, going back to my TV program, Ancient Aliens, people do a lot of talking. They'll talk about, ancient places in the world like Mohenjo-daro out in India and others, and say, look, there was ancient civilizations that prove that man's been here for a long time. Now, for some people, that is a revelation, and that is an insight which they imply seems to contradict the Bible, the Torah, with implications that other things in the Torah could be wrong. Well, that is the unspoken belief. And again, the reason why I document our teachings is to show that those beliefs are not necessarily true. There's no contradiction whatsoever. Is it possible that there was an ancient nuclear war? Yeah, that's the way we understand it. I don't know if it's nuclear or not. There does seem to be evidence. I do listen to many of the other guests on the program and their ideas and beliefs on things. I'm certainly no expert in these things, but there does seem to be some level of a prehistoric global destruction or catastrophe, which may or may not have been natural. So if there's any truth to these things, like many believe, well, like I said, it's not for me to arbitrate, to tell you, yes, this did or did not happen. I mean, in all due respect, I might be old. I'm not that old. I wasn't around 10,000 years ago. I wasn't hanging around, in the pubs on the street of the capital city of Atlantis. So I can tell you what it was like in the good old days. But nevertheless, these teachings we understand. So from our understanding of things, it worked like this. Somehow, somewhere, that great dawn of civilization was the first great civilization, and we say it corresponded in the Sefirot to the Sefirot Hesed. And at this time, everything was great. Everything was beautiful. It was the, in quote, glory days of the classic ancient civilization, very similar to what you find echoed about the teachings of the glory of ancient Atlantis. Word about Atlantis. Was Atlantis actually some sunken continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? That is what many people believe. And they believe that somehow, they had that movie back, in the early 60s, Atlantis, the Lost Continent. Gosh, I watched that when I was a kid. And they showed the whole, ocean sucking up and down, taking down the continent with it. Well, a lot of the modern theories want to put Atlantis somehow somewhere in the Mediterranean, the island of Thera, some others. Well, I don't know about these things, but I will tell you this, that the discovery of North America, no, not by Christopher Columbus or even earlier by the Vikings, we have actual archaeological evidence that North America was discovered long ago. You see, I'm building this up dramatically, by lost tribes of Israel. Now you go look this up online and you will find that there is a very old connection, belief that many of the Native American peoples of North America very possibly were lost tribes of Israel. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the beliefs of the Latter-day Saint community, the Mormons, that is one of the foundation teachings of their beliefs in their Book of Mormon. Well, remember, Joseph Smith didn't make this stuff up. He wrote this stuff at a period of time in which other books had already been out for decades, teaching similar types of ideas. A book which is readily available today. It's written by a man named James Adair, A-D-A-I-R, if I'm not mistaken, about the history of the Cherokee Nation, which I believe he wrote back in the 1760s, 1770. I think it's older than the existence of the United States itself. And he writes in a very big, thick book, hundreds of pages long, about all the similarities that he sees in the Cherokee Nation, and concludes that they must have been a lost tribe of Israel. I have seen online that with the Indian burial mounds, I think in Ohio, that they uncovered a burial tomb and found an amulet in it which had writings of the Ten Commandments in original Paleo Hebrew. I've seen that they've discovered Paleo Hebrew writings in the mountains of good old Tennessee, not too far from where I used to live. I have seen, oh gosh, what was it called? Las Lunas, if I'm not mistaken? That rock out in New Mexico, which seems to have etchings of the Ten Commandments in old Paleo Hebrew, dating back God knows how long. I have spoken with members of the Hopi tribe that seem to indicate an awareness of some type of a connection between our peoples and their own. So there's a lot of evidence that suggests a Native American, Jewish, or Israelite connection. I've spoken about this in the past. I've long wanted to speak to Native American elders, not New Age people who have ideas and beliefs of this or that, but people who have like real, authentic, ancient traditions. Somehow, somewhere, someone who would actually be able to validate a number of these teachings that James Adair wrote about, 200 plus years ago. But anyway, people have contacted me over the years about that. But what's all this talk about? Well, it is believed that for the destruction of the temple, that there were, shall we say, members of whatever tribe that made their way to these shores. How do they know that these shores were here? Well, allegedly, this is one of those ancient teachings, that the existence of the Americas were well known, even in biblical times, and visitation not only was possible, but established. Now, according to the traditions, they knew of these lands because this land here was the home of the ancient civilizations. According to those beliefs, no, Atlantis never sank under the sea. Atlantis, well, let's be blunt, it's pretty much the home where I live today. In other words, Atlantis is believed to be North America. True? False? How do I know? But all I can tell you is there are those who are of those opinions to believe that the pre-Adamic civilizations of which we speak flourished not in the Mesopotamian area, which the Adamic civilizations flourished, but right here in good old North America. What about South America? I guess it's possible, but that was not included in what I was taught. So I don't know if that omission is one of exclusion or just wasn't mentioned because, myself being a, in quote, North American, that was the context that was related to me. So true, false, whatever, all I can do is share with you the ideas, the beliefs, and make up your own minds. So now, if North America was Atlantis, and there was this ancient civilization in the Shemitah, the epoch called Hesed, somehow, somewhere, things fell. And there was need for rectification. It is then believed that some level of, oh, you're going to love this word, extraterrestrial intervention occurred. And it wasn't physical in that respect, but it was on a higher spiritual plane that some level or race of entities chose to materialize here in physical form and chose to serve as rectifiers to redeem that which had already fallen. So for those who tried to coincide the Ariel teachings with the pre-Adamic civilizations tap on this specific point, because we speak of in the Kitvei Ari about what's called the rectifier or the Ma Chadash. Go into my Otzrot Chaim classes for all the details on that, and how he comes to pick up the fallen kings, the kings who reigned in the land of Edom prior to there being a king in Israel. This is the foundation of the Torah of the Olam HaNikodim and Shvirat HaKilim that you find in the Ari. Again, reference my Otzrot Chaim classes on that. And as such, Chaim Vital again says all of this was spiritual. But even Chaim Vital acknowledges that a Shivira, shattering, occurred in Malchut. Malchut's the physical world. So therefore, if there was a shattering in the physical world, it could very easily be understood to be a reference to pre-Adamic, physical, flesh and blood, humanoid civilizations. So that aside, that is how we come to understand this. Now let's go back to our biblical story. Y'all know about the good old serpent. He comes down and seduces Adam and Eve to eat of the forbidden fruit and blah, blah, blah. Please, please, please recognize that this is all metaphors. Don't go arguing or debating what kind of fruit the tree of knowledge was. Some will say it's an apple. Some will say it was a fig. Some will say it's a pomegranate, right? I don't know. Maybe it was a watermelon. Maybe it was a watermelon bush. Maybe it was a banana. Obviously, I'm being facetious. No. We're dealing here with Semitic metaphor. So therefore, please don't try to get literal. When we're talking symbolic, you're really doing an insult to the meaning of the texts. Ultimately, story of the Garden of Eden, tree of knowledge, tree of life. Are they real trees, like growing out of the ground kind of stuff? Maybe there was some literal element to it. But let me digress from the pre-Adamic civilization to talk about the Garden of Eden. Now, again, I discussed this in Aliens, Angels, and Demons. Garden of Eden, where is it? Well, go on to, I don't know, my program, amongst other people that say it was in the Mesopotamian area, modern day Babylon. Some say in modern day, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, somewhere out there. And well, we have a very, very different tradition as to where the Garden of Eden is. For those of you familiar with Judaic teachings, you might be familiar with the famous teachings of the burial cave of Abraham that he bought for his wife Sarah in the cave of Machpelah in Kiryat Arba, modern day Hebron. You go there, it's one of the big contested places, you know, with all the stuff going on between the Palestinians and the Israelis and things like that. And you know something, guys, that hatred, that's got to come to an end. I mean, you look down at everyday stuff. Palestinian people are decent and good, you know, on a daily day, like everybody else is. Of course, you got the crazies out there, but you know, I try to shy away from politics. Let live and let live, and Be'ezrat Hashem, show, you know, respect, kavod for everybody. But with that being said, there's always been controversy in Hebron. It is taught in the legends that Abraham Avinu purchased the cave of Machpelah because it was discovered to be the burial place of Adam and Eve. Now, Adam and Eve, again, according to our understandings, were not actual physical people, but again, it's a metaphor speaking about the history of mankind. But let's just stick with the story for now. They were buried supposedly in this cave of Machpelah. Abraham discovered this and therefore wanted to acquire the cave. Well, what's so special about the cave? Why were they buried there? Because they say it is the entranceway to the Garden of Eden. Okay. Any of you know anything about like agriculture, growing gardens and flowers and stuff like that? In case you don't know, one of the most like fundamental important things of agriculture is something called like photosynthesis. In other words, you need access to the sun to make plants grow. To the best of my knowledge, you don't get a lot of sunshine in a cave. So what kind of garden is growing hundreds of feet down in a cave, right? Try to understand any of this literally, you know, just doesn't add up. What we understand is that somehow, some way, at this location inside this cave, there is an opening. I'm being said. We're on live class right now. I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. Well, I can't really do that right now. We're in the middle of live class. I'm bothering my host. My goodness, I'm so sorry. He's going to yell at me afterwards. So we're in a different location here. We try to reduce the echo. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to lower my voice a bit, and hopefully I'm not going to disturb him anymore. But anyway, getting back to the point about this cave in the Garden of Eden. Okay, apparently there was some kind of an opening, a vortex maybe, that led to a place in inner earth. According to our teachings, there is a hollow earth. You can go look this up online. It is taught in all different types of ideas and beliefs around the world. Even the famous founder of Halley's Comet, Sir Edmund Halley, spoke about this. Others have as well. In that respect, it is believed that inside our earth, there are multiple civilizations, and that this was the domain of that place called the Garden of Eden. Now, here's a story that my own Rebbe Meir Levi, Alav Shalom, taught me. Rebbe Meir, for those of you who don't know, my teacher in Kabbalah, was the top Talmid, the top student of Rabbi Mordechai Sharabi, who was the head of the Mikubalim, the Holy Kabbalists in Jerusalem. He told me that in the olden days, before the establishment of the State of Israel, there was still tension between Jews and Arabs at those days, that every now and then they would kidnap a wandering Jewish person. They would tie a rope around them, and they would lower him down this opening in this cave of Machpelah, hundreds and hundreds of feet down, to try to find out what was down there. And he told me that you would hear the screams of this person going down and down and down into the dark, and all of a sudden, the rope would go limp. There would be silence. They'd pull up the rope. Person was gone. It's not that the rope was cut. It's not that it was torn. It was gone too. That somehow, somewhere, the person who was being lowered down entered into something and then disappeared. Apparently, there's some type of an entranceway, a vortex in that location that goes to another place in inner earth. Some will refer to this as Kvitzat HaDerech, Kvitzat HaDerach, if you want a Dune reference. So, is any of this literal truth? Does the government of the State of Israel right now know that there's something down there? Well, I've spoken to people who kind of hinted to me that they do. And that's maybe why the caves down below Hebron are like completely off limits. But all I can do is share with you the stories, or I can do is share with you the teachings. So the pre-Adamic civilizations that exist on the face of the earth apparently also had representation in inner earth. That when Adam came to earth to be a rectifier for human civilization, essentially, he was not manifest here on the face of the earth, but in inner earth. That the Garden of Eden is in inner earth. That the original Adamic civilizations are in inner earth. And that there is, according to the teachings, an inner Jerusalem, corresponding to Upper Jerusalem. And that when the Ark of the Covenant was secreted out of the temple in Upper Jerusalem, it managed to find its way to inner earth, inner Jerusalem, where in which there's supposedly a functioning temple with functioning tribes of Israel to this very day. I've covered this about the teachings about the lost tribes of Israel beyond the river Sambation. And while some want to interpret that to being someplace in the modern day Afghanistani region with the Pashtuni people, who very well, most likely again, are the lost tribe of Israel. Kind of funny that they're Taliban at the same time that they're originally Israelite, but not the topic for another time. Now the understanding of the Sambation River is again believed to be an entranceway into inner earth. Now, being that Adam supposedly was originally from down there, we have a number of legends and teachings about inner earth. Now, for those of you who follow me on, I think on Facebook and things, I put a link to a very interesting novel that was written back in the 1660s by a woman named Margaret Cavendish called The Blazing World. Very interesting story, which when you read it, it kind of makes you, scratch your head and say, wait a second. Some of this sounds a little bit more than just fantastic fairy tales. She writes about inner earth. She called it The Blazing World. It's a book that I'm almost certain is in the public domain today. Audio versions of it are readily available on YouTube. You can purchase copies of it anywhere, probably free copies of it somewhere online. Again, it's a novel written in the 1660s by this woman, Lady Cavendish, and it's very, very interesting because when you read what she wrote, and she also speaks a lot of Kabbalah in the book, mentions it outright, these stories correspond to what our teachings are. So where she got these ideas from, if they were fed from some source, don't know, but it's well worth your reading to get you an idea of the realities of inner earth. So, more about inner earth. Adam and Eve come from inner earth. Cain and Abel were born in inner earth. Garden of Eden, still down there. The inner earth supposedly also has its own animal forms, which very well, according to the traditions, are still alive and living, including dragons, phoenixes, and of course, our favorite, unicorns. Everybody's heard of the unicorns. Even in the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, it speaks of the animal that was used in the days of the wandering of the wilderness, in the days when Moshe Rabbeinu built the Mishkan, that the skins of the animal to use to cover the Ark of the Covenant was an animal called a tachash. Now, you can have rationalists who refer to it as this or that kind of animal, but the legends in olden days have always referred to the tachash as being a unicorn. That's a Gemara. Again, true, false, all I can do is tell you what the legends state. And if you look at some forms of older Jewish artwork, not only will you find pictures of lions, embroidered or whatever in, you'll find pictures of unicorns. It is not an unknown thing in the Judaic tradition. Maybe you've heard of the famous bird called the phoenix, the one that, goes into its nest and burns up and resurrects itself. That's mentioned verbatim in the book of Job. So these ideas and beliefs were known and in many circles believed to be literal. And these animals are said to still exist in inner earth. Dinosaurs? Very possible that, according to these legends, might still exist in inner earth. Woolly mammoths and the like. There are a lot of ideas and beliefs. My position is not to take a stand of belief or disbelief in these things, but rather to just document that they exist. The ideas and beliefs exist, that is, and you draw your own conclusions. So the point that we understand then is that the inner earth existed. It was fully inhabited, not only by human civilizations, but other civilizations as well. It's a very interesting legend that states that there are all kinds of interactive races down there that are half human and half animal. Rabbi Abraham Azulai, in his book Hesed Abraham, speaks that there are like 360 different types of races, half man, half a lion, half man, half horse. Maybe there's some semblance of literalness to the ideas and beliefs of like the old centaur or things of that nature. That is what the legends imply. And that these civilizations of half man, half animal type still exist down there. And they're not evil monsters. They're not demonic entities. They have souls. They serve God. They're as decent, moral, righteous, or unrighteous, I guess, as any human being of the Homo sapiens species. So again, these are the legends. This is what is taught. And in light of so many of the modern day beliefs in the existences of these things, this is, again, seems maybe to indicate a possibility of it. The Zohar Kadosh in the Hashmatut to volume 1 253b, if I'm not mistaken, speaks about the inner earth, the 7 levels and layers of them. And one of the domains that it describes is a place called Nishaya. Now, the Nishaya, the people who live there, are supposedly like these little short guys, like the big bulbous eyes, and like little noses and stuff like that. And the descriptions given there make them sound all fully similar to that group of today, what we call ETs, known as the Greys. Are these really entities from inner Earth? Well, I've heard it discussed by those supposedly in the know that in the in quote saucers that they've downed from these little Greys, that they don't seem to be intergalactically viable. They seem to be short-term craft. And if they are short-term craft, well, where are they coming from? Well, for those who want to correlate them to possibly being inner Earth entities, and that their ways and means of travel from inner Earth to outer Earth might be similar to the vortex that we discussed in the Hebron cave, well, maybe there's something to that. All again I can do is document the ideas and the beliefs to you. So what's going on down in inner Earth? Well, you can go online, you can look at all the ideas and belief about Agartha and all the rest of these ideas and teachings that are out there today. The inner Earth is believed to be the home of the Watchers, our good old friends from Daniel, the fallen angels that we'll eventually get to talk about in Genesis 6, that they live in inner Earth, and that the, in quote, direction of the angelic order of our planet is from inner Earth. And you got a whole bunch of wild, crazy conspiracy theories online which speak about these things. I only make reference of it not to validate in any way these ideas or beliefs, but just to document their existence and their correlative teachings in our Judaic studies. So, moving on. It is also taught that when Adam, in quote, was banished from the Garden of Eden, this meant he was taken out of inner Earth and brought to surface Earth. I found a curious teaching amongst the Hopi. The Hopi Native Americans also believed that they originally came from inner Earth and that they came to the surface and that like. So, true, false, right, wrong, all I can do, again, is document that these are the beliefs. You make up your own minds what you choose to believe. So, in that respect, again, the purpose of this little class here is to give you an awareness and the idea of the grandiosity of our Torah teachings. So let's just put some things together. Our earth is much older than we think. Our civilization is much older than we think. Our world is far more complex than we think. And that indeed, we are not alone. We are not alone not only in our universe, we're not even alone on our own planet. That there are others here. Now, for the record, let me just dispel some ideas and beliefs. We do not believe, as is taught in the Christian tradition, of the existence of a parallel dominion of evil called hell, ran by the anti-God Satan or any of those other types of things. That's a duality concept, a dichotomy which we fundamentally reject. It has no source, no foundation in the Jewish Bible. There's no reference to any of these things. So those of you who want to say, well, hell is inside the inner earth. Some say that Gehinnom is to the north of Gan Eden. Well, if there is a place called Gehinnom, it's not the place of these, eternally damned souls. We don't have any of that kind of concept in our Judaic tradition whatsoever. But we do understand and know that there are races, other races here on earth called Shedim. They are translated to be demons. But again, our understanding of demons are not the fallen dominions of Satan whose job it is to, get your soul to go to hell. They are other entities. We're not going to get into the details of them at this point, other than to say, to echo actually a teaching that's brought down in Islam. Because Islam speaks of the demons, Shedim, they call them the Jinn. The Jinn, we call them genies. Many of you might remember the old television program with Barbara Eden, dating a long time ago. I Dream of Jeannie. Remember, she's that very beautiful blonde woman, blink her head and get, what was his name? Larry Hagman played Colonel Nelson. Got him in a lot of trouble. Old funny show from him. I think the reruns were still on even recently. But anyway, Jinn, demons, you can say, well, they're evil dominions of the devil. Well, according to our teachings and tradition, there were places that needed to be built in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem when it was built by Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, and that he sent Ben Yehoiada, the famous captain of his guard, to inner earth to contact the head of the Shedim, whose name was Ashmodai, and that Ashmodai supposedly was a righteous Shed who served God and gave to Benyahu an army of builders who brought with them secret technology from inner earth, one thing called the shamir, which is described as a little worm which was put on rocks, causing them to split evenly, because if you remember, the biblical law was you weren't allowed to cut rocks to build the temple. And yet the stones, we can see to this day, are very meticulously cut. So this shamir supposedly was some type of a cutting tool. Some have tried to speculate that it might have been some form of even a laser technology. Who knows? As such, well, we know the temple's there. We know this exists. It was brought from inner earth. And it said that this army of Shedim built those secret little places under the Temple Mount, and no human being was allowed to know their existence, and supposedly they still don't. And that's the Gemara story. I taught on this in detail. If I do not have the story already on my YouTube channel, I'll get those classes up there. I think I put them up there already. So you can go to our YouTube channel, KosherTorah School, and it should be there. So anyway, I see I'm kind of ran out of time today. And I'm just going to conclude now by letting you again know there's so much more to our Torah traditions, so much more to our Torah understanding of the greater world in which we live in. It reminds me of the famous words in Pirkei Avot, where it says, Hafuch ba v'hafuch ba d'kula ba. Flip it once, flip it twice, everything is in it. There is such an amazing wealth of material that our sages speak about over thousands of years. Check these things out. Again, last time, my book, I document a lot of these sources. I bring down a lot of the materials, some really wild stories that our sages have taught. I've shared some of them on the Ancient Alien program, and being that they don't always give me the time that I would like, that's why the book is available. So for those of you who are curious, want to learn about these stories, an expanded understanding of the secrets of Genesis, my book's available on Amazon.com. Check it out. See for yourself. All my classes are available online. Check them out. See for yourself. Draw your own conclusions. My job as a teacher is to provide for you information and sources. Your job as an individual, you make up your own mind what you choose to believe. That's not my job. That's yours. Okay, on that note, let's conclude. I want to thank you again for joining me here. Again, I'm Ariel Tzadok from the KosherTorah School. You find us online at KosherTorah.com. See you on our next class. Take good care. God bless. Good night. Well, good morning, actually, from here in Europe. Shalom.